Hello friends, and welcome to today's video where we're gonna get a little messy because I want to talk about some album packaging that I hate. So I have a lot of albums. I have picked out 10. 4 of those are specific to the album, and then the rest are just tropier types of complaints that I have about some album packaging. So that's just what's gonna happen. I have the albums, we're gonna have more props today. I hope you're excited. Before I get started, some quick little disclaimers. First of all, everything I'm going to say in this video is just an opinion. You can love the packaging for all of these albums, and that's great. I love that for us. Another disclaimer, just because I hate the packaging doesn't mean I hate the album. There's at least one album off the top of my head that I have reviewed that is in this little video for now, that is in the stack of albums that I have that I'm gonna say that I hate. And I'd say I love that album in that video, and I do love that album. It is a great album, so like I can hate the packaging and love the album, is my point. Let's get started. Our very first album is Dum Dee Dum Dee by Giddle, and the reason I don't like this packaging is very, very simple. I think it's ugly. I just don't really like the way it looks. I hate the aesthetic of it. There's so much about it that I just like. I hate that it's in like an outer packaging with it. Just everything about it. I just hate the packaging for this album. There's something about it that just gets me so deeply. Just this album as a whole, not a fan of the packaging at the very least. The next album on this list is SHINee's Atlantis. I'm gonna show you really quickly what I hate about this. I don't know if you can tell, but like the side of it looks like paper that has just been glued together. Basically, I just remember when I was opening this album, I was convinced that it was just gonna fall apart. Like, it gave me so much anxiety. I hate it to this day. Like, I am scared to touch this album because in my brain, I am still convinced that like one wrong move and the entire thing is just going to crumble into a bunch of separate pieces of paper, and then I'm just gonna have to cry. Next album, 17 Tengai. This album, very easy complaint to figure out if you know how this album came. You have to build this album. I'm not building my album. I paid like 20 something dollars for this album. I'm not building my album after paying that. Like, when I pay that money, I want the album to come the way it is meant to be. I am not going through the effort of putting it together. That's just not gonna happen. So yeah, it now exists in this blue thing that I actually also really like because it has some of my member names on it. But unrelated to that, like, you have to build it, and I think it's stupid and I hate it. Next, another 17 album, this time their debut album, 17 Carat. This album, it's plain and simple. I said this in a different video. This is my least favorite album packaging in my entire album collection. I honestly stand by that. It is such a bitch to like open and like go through and then put back together, because like the entire back, I'm not gonna open it because I don't want to go through the effort of putting it back together, but the entire back comes out and you have to like reform the entire album. It's so annoying to do. I hate it so much. I have opened this album exactly like once or twice in my entire life just because I hate putting it back together. Yes, we have another 17 album. This is the last one, I promise. We've also entered tropey territory, so now it's going to be less like specific complaints about the album and more just in general statements about album packaging that I hate. But we're starting with Semicolon anyway, because Semicolon, if you don't know, is member versions, and this is the Jihoon version, I'm pretty sure. But I remember when I bought this album, I'm not going to say which member it was, but I did, in my original purchase, I just bought one version, and it was a member that I didn't like. So I went on eBay and I found the Chan and Jihoon versions because they're my top 2 in 17, and I bought their versions instead. And I tell you the story to say that member versions need to be outlawed because they are terrible. I hate them. And for a lot of albums, especially, like when you go on certain sites, there are a ton of sites to buy albums from, but for some of them, you can select the version you want. The only type of album really that they won't let you do that for is member versions, because they know the more popular members are just going to sell out and they're going to be stuck with the members that no one wants, so they don't let you pick the versions. And I hate it so much because nowadays, like, I bought a copy of maybe I should have done Exodus, whatever, we've already done Semicolon, but I bought a copy of Exodus. I'm not going to tell you which member it is, but I didn't like the member I got, so like I was just pissed about it and I have to suffer through it. And like, I have a bunch of AB6 albums. If you remember my OG setup, you will remember I had a bunch of AB6 albums next to me. Like, if you remember that, shout out to you more than anything else. But for them, I did not buy their latest album. Why? Because it was member versions, and I just knew I would get a member that I didn't care about, and I hate member versions. Like, that's the point of this. Member versions, they're a no for me. I will very rarely buy a copy of an album if it's member versions at this point. My next issue is going to be signified by 101's Undivided album. If you don't know, this album has 6 versions. I do actually have all 6. Pro tip, if you like buying albums and you don't care about photo cards, go on eBay, see if you can find it without the photo cards. I got all 6 versions of this album for like $10 because I didn't care about photo cards. That's my pro tip to you. That's your little helpful tip from Simon for today. But for this album, I'm gonna now complain about the sheer quantity of versions, because I am a collector at heart. Like I said earlier, I have a bunch of albums. I love collecting things. The issue then arises when groups will do 6 versions of an album, because like, why? Why do you need so many versions? Especially for a group like One Like your album's gonna sell well either way. Why do you need to go insane like this? I hate when groups start going crazy with the number of versions for their albums, especially because like if I like the group and let's say they only have like 2 copies of each album, right? I'll buy the 2 copies. I'm fine with that. Once you get past that though, like if I have, let's say, all the copies of your albums and it's 2 copies per album, that's great, right? Then you suddenly do like 4. And then I'd suddenly twice the month. I just hate it. I need, like, 3 is my limit, right? Like, 3 is basically, at that point, beyond that, I'm like, you're ridiculous. No, thank you. Next issue. Albums that are gigantic, as signified by Queendom, which cannot fit entirely in the shot on this table, which is just the height of ridiculousness. This album, if you can't tell, is gigantic, and I don't know what, there are groups that will put out albums that are massive, but the difference is, because in my brain, if you're gonna do a massive album, give me like normal sized photos, but a bunch of them. They just give you giant photos, so it's just a waste. Like, you're wasting the paper, and it's gigantic, and it takes up shelf space. It's so dumb, I hate it so much. On the opposite end, our next issue is going to be signified by Yoza Chingu's The Awakening. Why is it so tiny? Like, there are albums that are too big, but then there are albums that are so small. And then it's just like, why? Why do you have to be so tiny? Because, like, especially for me, like, I have all my albums on a bunch of shelves. These get lost. Like, there's this one. I know Dean's album. I also have a copy of his album. It's so tiny. I cannot find it sometimes on my shelves. It's just, when they're this small, you don't know what happened to them. They disappear into the mess. And it's such a problem for me. I know this is a very me problem, but at the same time, it still annoys me, and this is my channel, so I get to complain about it. Our next issue is going to be signified by The Boys' Thrilling album. Where was the effort? Look at this album cover. Is graphic design your passion? I have to know. Like, where was the effort? Where was the effort put into the cover of this album? Because at the end of the day, while the photo book is also very important to me personally, the cover I see consistently. And it's so low effort. This looks like it was made by a, like, 3rd grader learning how to do Photoshop. That's how I can describe it. It literally is so basic and it's so boring. And I have all 3 versions. None of them are better than this. The Boys, I remember, used to do like special versions, like DIY versions that were really cute. They stopped doing that, and now we're stuck with this. I'm not a fan. The final album on this list is going to be Key's Bad Love. And hear me out for this one. This one is another very specific complaint. I have brought a prop with me. This is, you can look at it. Here's like a side-by-side thing, right? This is a copy of Key's Face album. This is the size that every SHINee solo album is, more or less. Other than like 2 or 3, they're all this exact size, this exact dimensions. They make it very, very aesthetically pleasing to store every SHINee solo album in one go. Like, I have a giant stack of them because I have them all. So they are such an aesthetic. And then Bad Love came out. And here's the issue with Bad Love. Bad Love doesn't fit the aesthetic. It's slightly too small. Like, Taemin's Advice also doesn't fit the aesthetic because it's too big. But the difference is Bad Love is small enough that it's now on the top of that stack. But the issue is, it looks weird. It looks like it's like a weird tower thing now, because it's a giant stack of this size album, and then there's tiny ass Bad Love on the top, and I hate it so much. It ruins the vibe, and I am terrified of what Dice is gonna look like, because it got shipped out yesterday, because I ordered it when I ordered 17's Full, and 17's Full just got shipped yesterday, and I'm scared of what it's gonna look like. I'm scared it's gonna keep ruining the aesthetic, and that it's just gonna make me sad. I hope you enjoyed today's video, because that is all I have for you. I know this was dumb and stupid, but it is not a great time to live in the United States of America, and I like dumb things distracting me. So that's what today's video is. It's basically a way for me to not think about life. And yeah, I hope you liked it. You can comment your thoughts on the packaging down below, comment your thoughts on my complaints, comment some of your least favorite packaging, comment whatever you want is more or less the thing. Just keep it, keep it sane, I guess I'll put it. Like, you'll know what not to comment. I have faith in you all. Either way, though, I hope you liked it. You can like and subscribe if you want to, or don't. I will be okay either way. You can also follow me on Twitter at s_album_reviews. I will link that in the description, and I will also link of the albums that I've done here. I've reviewed a couple of them, so I will link all those in the description if you want to watch those. I will link some other videos, maybe. I don't know. But either way, there'll be videos down there. You can watch those if you so choose. But yeah, thank you again for watching. Bye!